all these guys fight for their career.
Guys, I gotta talk about this Netflix documentary series. This is just one of the most interesting things that's been happening right now. We all know about the documentary Full Swing by Netflix. And I'll be honest with you, this documentary was such a huge letdown. It really was. I didn't want to initially make this video because I really wanted to like the documentary. I actually reactivated my Netflix account for this month that I've had deactivated for like 5 months, or like a year actually, because I didn't want to waste time on Netflix anymore. I wanted to, spend my time more thoughtfully or whatever. But I actually reactivated my Netflix account for this series. I was obviously going to remove it afterwards anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the point is though, this documentary was something that I was really expecting to be like a big deal, something that was going to bring potentially new fans back into the moments and really showcase like a new way to tell stories about golf, right? Because golf is traditionally treated like an individual sport, because it is an individual sport. But this was an opportunity to tell a cohesive narrative for an entire season of the PGA Tour. And it was marketed as such. We see it in the trailer. The opening quote is, "These guys are competing all year, every year." We see it where they have the scene where it says, the infamous quote from Ian Poulter where he goes, "You guys picked a hell of a year to start following the PGA Tour." We see those quotes, and so you're expecting a cohesive narrative for an entire season, right? And honestly, the documentary, it wasn't a bad year to cover the PGA Tour. It was the best year to cover the PGA Tour. It really was. That was a great quote by Ian Poulter, because it's the truth. It was the year that Liv broke away. It was the year that Rory's trying to return to form. It's the year that so many players shoot up out of nowhere. You had Sam Burns, Scotty Scheffler, all come out of nowhere and become top players, winning multiple times. You had, obviously, Tiger trying to return. You had the 150th British Open. You have all of these wonderful moments that are happening throughout the season, and they shit the bed. Like, Netflix just pooped the bed. I don't know who was in charge of editing, but to me it was like whoever edited this series has never watched any sports documentary at all. Sports documentaries are some of the most compelling, beautiful things, because they take the moment, right? They take the moment, the individual moment of a person's career or a person's victory or an event, a singular event, like a Super Bowl win. And they build the story around that and showcase the backlog, the characters that are involved, the process of how we got there, and then by the time you get to the actual event, you just feel it. Because you have 15, 20 dudes that you're rooting for. You have the entire whatever that you're just rooting for, that you're excited for. And Netflix didn't do this. They just jumped around the entire time. The first episode, this wasn't a season-long thing. This shouldn't even be called Full Swing. It should be called Spotlight. Player Spotlight. Because they literally just took 8 episodes and kind of divided the episodes unevenly about 2 players. So first episode was JT and Jordan. Second episode, you got Brooks and Scheffler. Third episode I think was Fitzpatrick and third episode was Ian Poulter and then somebody else. The point is that each episode was basically divided up between 2 athletes. Then episode 4 was Joel Damon, pretty much, which was really awesome. That episode was actually pretty good because none of us really know much about Joel Damon. He was the only lesser-known player, I guess that you could say, was picked out of the group to be, really looked at. You had the episode with Finau Morikawa. You had the last episode, which was basically Rory, but also a little bit of Cam Smith as well, just because that's kind of how the narrative works. It was just the most awkward thing, man. So irritating. Because the PGA Tour season is long. There's 4 major events, 5 if you count the players. And They didn't. They had all the cast of characters, right? They had the rookie episode where they're focusing on Sahith Theegala and Mito Pereira, which they have these amazing moments. Every single player does throughout the entire season, but they really only focused on 5 events. And it was basically if you watched that series, you would think the PGA Tour was 5 events, almost. You would think that because you saw the Waste Management, you saw the PGA, you saw the Masters, you saw the U.S. Open, the British Open, and that was pretty much it. They mentioned briefly Tony Finau's 2 wins. They mentioned briefly, the RSM Classic, which Jordan won. The RMC Heritage Classic. But anyway, it was haphazard because you'd think, based on the way the show was run, that, JT won the first event of the year. No, he won like an event in the middle of the year. And the messed up thing was they kept cutting back to it. So rather than be starting off with the introduction, rather than introducing you to every single player they're going to spotlight in the very first episode, spending that entire episode building a coalition and an understanding of these are the characters, these are who they are, this is how they were raised, yada yada. That should have been the first episode, or maybe even 2 episodes, is introducing these players, where they came from, why they're special, why you should give a fuck about these people. And they didn't do that. They just jumped around. So by the time they have the rookie episode with Sahith Theegala and Mito Pereira, which we all know Mito had the big, horrible meltdown, the straight up, he had a Van de Velde moment at the PGA. Had the PGA in the bag, and then Van de Velde himself on the 72nd hole with a shank hook drive in the water. But by the time you get to that episode, you no longer give a shit. Because you've already seen in the series. Now granted, us golf fans already knew about it. But in the series, you literally see the PGA Championship focused on and talked about and mentioned and shown shots of and shown the result of, 3 or 4 times by that episode. So why do I even care anymore? Why do I want to watch? Why am I even going to attempt to build any type of ethos and bond toward Mito from the series? I've already seen this result 6 times. I already know JT wins. I already saw him lift the trophy. I don't care about him and his girlfriend crying. I don't care about him and Wako being pissed off anymore. Because you already ruined it because you didn't tell a story. You told a spotlight. Whoever edited this series, they had great footage. They had the footage. They didn't have enough outsider opinions. Like, they didn't have enough pundits because Amanda Renner had way too much talking time. She actually had the most talking lines out of any single person in the entire show. So I think the editors just want to bang Amanda Renner, which, okay, that's cool. She's married. I don't know why you're trying to do that. But yeah, man, it was so cringy to watch once you realized that was the format, because they weren't telling a narrative. They weren't telling the story of the season. They were telling individual experiences in a spotlighted sectional of the season. Because the way that they behaved, like, you'd think that JT wasn't at the British Open. You'd think that Morikawa wasn't at the Masters. You'd think that the way that they were editing things together, you were just like, wait, so the guy that I saw in the very first episode, is he even at those events? Because you see them for that one episode, but wait a second, Dustin Johnson's on the leaderboard going into the final round in several of these events, and you're not even having any reference or mention to him in this episode, but we're spotlighting this event. Why are you not talking about him in some kind of way? Why aren't we cutting to a clip of him and explaining where he's at in this moment? You're not doing it. They had everything in the bag. This could have been special. And they shit the bed. 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. The Joel Damon episode was good. There was some decent information brought about, and they had great footage. But it was just edited so poorly. Whoever was the show producer and editor just needs to get fired, castrated, or forced to watch every single sports documentary ever. Because, homeboy, you fucked up. You fucked up big time. Pardon the French, guys. I was super excited for this. I was looking forward to this. I really wanted to see... We don't see 30 for 30s very often involving golf, right? We don't see top-tier level directed movies about golf as far as documentaries go. Yeah, the only one I can think of is the Greg Norman collapse one, which I saw last year. That was a really well done one where they basically talk about the career of Greg Norman. And that's really it. There's not really any other, bigger time ones. For whatever reason, basketball gets a bunch of them, but golf really doesn't. And I was so looking forward to this. And they just pooped the bed. But what do you guys think? Am I overreacting? I'm sorry if I am. I'm sorry for the cussing. It's so upsetting.